I liked how you shared about your experience with your wife and your marriage.
By the way, this morning, I told that story and someone came up to me and they're like, what's your relationship with your first wife like now? And I was like, no, we worked it out. So just so you know, that was my wife, Rachel. We did. We got counseling. We worked it out. 23 years later, we're still here. So thank you.
Love it. That was kind of it. Like, I know you're still together, but I was wondering, what was the mountain like? Like, how did you get over that together? Yeah.
I mean, I think the big thing was, probably the biggest thing was for me to get over the idea that I wasn't the problem. So, I think everybody feels like that sometimes, but that was really it. It was me waking up as I read that letter to realize that the marriage wasn't working, not because she wasn't doing what she was supposed to or because she wasn't living up to my expectations. It was because I wasn't fully engaging, I wasn't being present, and I wasn't being honest about that. And the next step for that was to actually get some therapy and meet with a counselor and not try to just muscle it out on my own. So it was two things. We got a counselor together, and we did therapy that way, and I got a counselor on my own, and so did my wife as well as part of her own journey. And it was a couple of years there, and we pieced some things back together, and we started working. A few years after that, we moved to Calgary. 10 years after that, we adopted kids. We started a church. We've done lots of things together. But I think it was really those two things, was me admitting that it wasn't just her, which I know sounds so obvious, right? But when you're in the midst of it, that's a hard thing to admit to yourself. And then to realize that we weren't going to get through it on our own. We needed some help. We needed help together, and we needed help individually. And I'm really proud of us for that. I'm proud of the work that we put in and where we've ended up today. So thanks. Got a question here? Let's take one more.
Yeah. Got some cool ones. Here's a thought. So, Jerry, you touched on this, kind of. But what are some ways that you personally give life to both body and mind?
Yeah, I talked about some of those. You did a bit last week, but what do you got? I know you got some things.
I just need a beat to think about it.
No, okay. Well, for me, so joking, also jokes aside, I walk my dog twice a day. It's a really big part of the rhythms of my life. It's the first thing I do in the morning. We go for a half-hour walk. It's the last thing I do after I put my kids to bed at night. And it's the walking, but it's also the ritual of it, that it's what I do when I get up. It's what I do before I go to bed. So that's part of it. And then also, I've started doing, working out a little more regularly, and that's been really good for me. Normally through the year, I play hockey. I like team sports. I like being around friends and doing that. So that's a good way to keep me moving. Unfortunately, I don't do that in the summer. So tonight I rode my bike. I went for a bike ride with the kids. It's not rocket science here. It's just being active, being present, and going through those things, and being aware of your energy highs and lows throughout the year. That's a big thing for me, is being very conscious of where do I have a lot of energy and where do I not? How do I compensate for that and lean into it?
Okay, I'm ready. I always just need a beat to think about things. Maybe you feel me on that. I was thinking about this text and the way that it surfaced memories for me, which seems so strange. It's a really wacky text. If you open Ezekiel anywhere, you'll be like, what? But I grew up on the edge of a valley in Saskatchewan, and we actually had we called it Bone Valley, like a hill where all of the cattle, once they were dead and butchered, would just be left, and then animals would feast on what was left, and there would just be years of sun and wind and snow on these dry bones. And I was thinking, there's got to be something cool about this memory. I can't think of anything. Sometimes bones are just bones, But what it got me thinking about is that there's this phrase that keeps coming up at the end of the text that we explored tonight, which is the divine saying, I will, I will, I will, I will. And we can be going about our lives, and you might see the metaphor right in front of you, and you're looking at it, and it's just that's still just dry bones. That's nothing to me. There is no life here. But the sense that the divine, in some kind of strange moment, might in a moment say, no, this is the moment that it's so much more than dry bones. And I think there's something essential about joy in that like it's not something we often manufacture. Do we ever? It comes up from life for us, and it can be absent, and then the dry bones become living things. Joy becomes a flash, a burst of something very, very much alive. So that has nothing to do with the question, but maybe it also does, that there's this sense that joy is gift. And I said this last week, I think it sort of saves us, and it keeps us with a sense of like dignity and glory and beauty and play and fun. So sometimes a memory is just a memory, but maybe sometimes it's kind of a funny thing to tell a group of people and you have a laugh about it and there's a burst of joy. And we go on that spirit into the rest of the evening.